just before the January transfer window, we're going to do a mid-season review. We did a video like this at the start of the season. You can click below and see how we did with that. And we're going to look at the predictions midpoint now, see kind of how we got on, and then how it's looking towards the end of the season as well. Obviously, a lot of drama, a lot of stuff's already happened. We've had a World Cup. We've had all sorts go on. Now is probably a good little time to look at it before January to see exactly how things are going to go. Yeah. Right. So first of all, it's myself, Chris, from Northeast Updates. And we've also got Lewis from Northeast Updates as well. Hi, Lewis.
Hi, yeah. How's it going?
Absolutely fantastic. As a Newcastle fan, absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think we're going to touch on it later, where we exactly thought everyone would go. As a Liverpool fan, how are you feeling? Are you optimistic or what going into the second half?
Oh, it could go either way, mate. But I'm optimistic. I hope the breaks give us a kick up the arse, sort of. So we'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, you've still got some injury doubts. Are you expecting many signings in January? What's the word on the street?
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting something to happen in January, whether it's going to be any big signings or just squad depth ones, we'll soon see. But with the club up for sale now, I think Jurgen wants to start spending the money on big players. So, yeah, but it could be interesting in the second half of the season. It's like a completely new season after the World Cup's finished. I completely forgot how well even Newcastle were doing. Up in third place.
Yeah, getting nosebleeds at the minute.
I know. No, yeah, it's exciting though. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so obviously January, it's an exciting time, but this is a good chance to look back, like I was saying. So the first thing that we looked at the start of the season which is a long time ago now, is who was going to get the Golden Boot. Now, this one, we both absolutely got spot on. I don't really think there was any massive surprises with this, was Haaland. Yeah. It just seems like going forward, are you changing your mind at all? It's got to be Haaland, surely.
No, there's no point changing your mind. I feel like he's already won the Golden Boot now, rather than the end of the season.
Well, I pulled up the stats. I'd kind of seen exactly where we're at, just to see in case of an injury or something. So Haaland currently, as of recording, before we go into the Boxing Day fixtures, Haaland's on 18. So second place is Harry Kane on 12. So there's a massive gulf between that. Then surprisingly to some, we've got Tony on 10, who's been an absolute breakout. Everyone knew how capable he was, but to be third in the goal scoring charts is probably, for a Brentford player, unbelievable. It's a testament to him.
Yeah, it's good going. I mean, I can't see past Haaland though at the minute. I mean, he's had a full month and a bit off now, so I think he's just going to come back and score even more than he did in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, fourth place, we got Mitrovic as well. So he's playing in the Championship last season. Newcastle obviously got rid of him a few years ago. He seems to just be on fire at the minute. He's actually joint with Rodrigo at Leeds, both on 9. Ooh. Both kind of surprises for the Golden Boot to be near it. Next one was top 3 transfers. So this is where we looked during the summer at who was going to be the top 3 transfers made. So obviously this is a whole thing of cat and hindsight. It's great to look back and think of how many we might have gotten wrong. I think we both did quite all right with this. So we both kind of shared that Haaland was obviously number 1. I think that was pretty obvious. The start he had, he's still hat-tricks for fun at the moment, just like a train without the brakes. We then both second went for Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, really good shout for at the time, but I think he's got a bit of an injury, long-term looking injury, and Arsenal might need to sign a new striker in January. But I mean, going based off the first couple of months of the season, then yeah, absolutely, Jesus will be up there at number 2. He's been incredible for Arsenal since signing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought at the time it was a bit of a brave punt, because when I was looking at the other transfers, looking back at it now, there was some big name moves in the summer. Yeah. We had Zinchenko, Richarlison, who's just had an absolutely fantastic World Cup. Nunes, who cost an absolute bucket load. We got Casemiro, Koulibaly, Aubameyang, Isaac. There was a lot. So I think we got it nailed on with Jesus. The number 3 though.
Number 3 is
we went for Sterling, and I would say he's just been okay. How would you describe him?
I mean, Chelsea in general have been below average, so I think it's quite hard to sort of say where he's been this season, Sterling. I mean, he's come up now and again, but yeah, going off the average of the start of the season, he hasn't really lived up to what many people thought he would in that Chelsea team. But I mean, with more time under Graham Potter, you never know what we'll see from Chelsea in the second half of the season.
Yeah, well, they have really underperformed, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah. I think they had high hopes with Sterling, that obviously just brought the new defenders in, really underachieving. So if we were to do this again and guess who's going to be the third best transfer in the summer gone, who would you give it to looking forward?
Oh, it's a hard one, that. I know we're going to look at the bargain transfer coming up, and I think I would probably go for someone similar to who I picked for that, which would be Ivan Perisic at Spurs. He's just had a really, really good World Cup on a free transfer. I think he would maybe slot in there. But there's definitely a few others.
There's definitely a few others. I think I'm a bit torn. So I would have either, looking back at it now, went for Richarlison, because I think this second half of the season, if he can get anywhere close to the form that he's been in for Brazil, that'll be fantastic. But for me, maybe slightly biased, maybe not, is Botman for Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
He just seems like a Rolls Royce of a player. He seems to me like he could play for Man City. He could play for anyone. He's just slotted in from basically unknown in terms of Premier League level to what he's become is fantastic. But there's obviously some other great shouts as well in there. So Nunes, I think there's a lot more to be coming from him.
Yeah.
We've not really seen anything of Calvin Phillips at Man City. There's a ton of names who were signed. But yeah, I think top two we nailed it. Third one is kind of open for the public. And this is kind of where, if you're watching this video, let us know below in the comments all of these answers and what you would give. So who would you put as your top three?
I mean, Botman, I was watching him there and yesterday against Vallecano in that friendly, and he just looks so good on the ball. He was shoving players over. He just, as you said, he just looks like such a Royal Royce centre back. So yeah, I definitely think he's been one of the crucial signings for Newcastle this season.
Yeah, I think defensively the whole of Newcastle's just been fantastic. Obviously, we went for Pope. That was another summer signing. But in terms of Botman himself individually, I think there was a stat after the first few games, he'd never lost an aerial duel. I don't even know how you can go 1 or 2 games without losing an aerial duel, but this was about 5-6 games in. It was ridiculous. So his stats are fantastic. He's obviously part of a well-drilled defence at Newcastle, so he's still really young. It seems like he's just going to go strength to strength. So I think he could be third. And if it is a bad injury to Jesus, that's probably going to put him down in the top 3, and maybe Botman could be the second best transfer. Who knows? We'll see at the end of the season. We'll do another one of these at the end and see exactly where we got it. The next one is best club transfer wise. So obviously in the summer there was a lot of transfers, a lot of clubs went big, a lot really tightened the purse strings. When we were looking at this, so I went for Nottingham Forest. So I'll kind of just touch on me first. So obviously they splurged a ton of money. It was a big gamble. It was kind of like what Fulham did a few seasons ago. So it's a big gamble. Now, obviously at the time of recording, they're 18. So all they really need for that gamble to pay off is to survive, whether it's by goal difference, 10 points, whatever it is. So they're kind of on that level where it could go either way still. They're not flying. They're kind of there or thereabouts. I think the signings that have made, Lingard, I've been very disappointed with. He was linked with Newcastle. He was going to go to West Ham. He had all this lofty ambition. He's not really done anything in terms of stats, goals. The England team, he was not ever going to get called up into the World Cup. He just seemed to have fallen off a cliff. But I think Nottingham Forest could survive. But obviously, we're going to touch on who gets relegated later on in the video. You went for Spurs.
Yep.
How would you analyse Spurs, or how would you analyse Nottingham Forest as well?
Forest, yeah. I mean, I think I remember saying the same thing. It reminded me a lot of what Fulham done a couple of seasons ago, spending big. It just hasn't went right for them so far. But then they have picked up big wins. Liverpool at home, they beat Spurs in the EFL Cup as well. So I think Forest, there's still plenty of time for them to come together as a team and play some good, proper football. And maybe some of the players are still just trying to get used to the league. And I know how good of a manager Steve Cooper is. So it's quite interesting. We'll see how that one plays out. As for Spurs, I mean, yeah, I think we both agreed they made some pretty good signings. Basuma, Perisic, Richarlison at the start of the season. And they're sitting in 4th place at the minute. So can't really say anything wrong about them at the minute.
Yeah. So if you had to put your money where the mouth is, would you say Nottingham Forest will get out, and would you say Spurs might carry on their form? Get top four?
I'm still sort of worried about Forest. I don't know what it is with them, but I mean, I'd be pretty confident in saying that Spurs will get top four this season.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of worst club transfer wise, this is always an interesting one. Now, for this, we had different answers as well. I went for Leicester. Now, at the time, we did the video right before the transfer window closed. At that time, which is still the case, I felt it was an absolute dreadful transfer window for them. So just looking back, they had Fofana, who left, and the ton of money that they got that they just never reinvested. Schmeichel, who was an absolute cornerstone of them, left. They managed to keep hold of Maddison. There were some late bids that obviously came in. He's gone on and had a wonderful start of the first half of the season. He's probably the reason what dug them out, because they were doing dreadful up until a few games ago. Tielemans, however, it looks like he's either going to leave in January and get some money for him, or his contract's going to run out. It doesn't seem like he's going to stay at Leicester, and it doesn't seem like Leicester's going to move on to great things. So I think I would stick with that. I think Leicester had a dreadful summer, and I'm unsure what they're going to do in January. Obviously, there's going to be clubs sniffing around Maddison. Is Maddison going to want to stay when everyone seems to be leaving a sinking ship sort of thing? The manager nearly got sacked a few games in.
Their league forms matched that pretty well.
Yeah. How do you see Leicester this season going into the second half?
I mean, they've been really underwhelming so far, Leicester, in the Premier League, and I think I pretty much agree with everything that you've said. I think they'll be fine. I don't think relegation or anything's to worry about, but I just see them floating around that sort of middle-ish area of the Premier League. I don't really see them going higher or lower, to be honest.
Yeah, and then you went for Bournemouth. Now they're 14th in the league at the moment, and they've just been taken over. So what's your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think the main reason I went for Bournemouth at the time was just because there wasn't really much happening. It seemed quite quiet, and they were managed by Scott Parker, who's now been...
They just got rid of him before we did the video.
They just got rid of him as well, yeah. But then, they've signed Marcus Tavernier. I think he's done quite well in the Premier League so far. But I think Bournemouth have done better than what I expected them to. I mean,
I think most people, they've completely exceeded expectation,
Yeah, they've picked up some, apart from conceding 9 goals at Anfield, they've picked up some good results, and they've been all right at home this season. So I think they'll be able to survive.
Yeah, well, the new owners, whenever new owners come in, they always kind of first transfer window will put a little bit of money down. You expecting big things from Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it happening, but the last thing they want to do is what Forest have ended up doing, and buying too many players and sort of bit of unrest in the squad if that happens. So I think we'll see some signings, which would be pretty interesting to see who they bring in.
I think they probably need to, because I think quality-wise, they are capable of getting sucked into the relegation zone. Even though they're 14th and have had a good start, I still think quality-wise, man for man, they could still struggle. So next
here
one
tomorrow, so they are
exactly. Yeah. Breakout start of the season was the next one that we did. Now, it's always going to be young players for this. You went for Harvey Elliott. Now, how would you describe his first half of the season? There's obviously been injuries at Liverpool, which has maximised his game time. You're a Liverpool fan, so you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm a Liverpool fan indeed. I mean, again, just like last season, injuries have had a big play on Elliott this season. He did have a good start to the season, played in some big wins, scored against Rangers away in the Champions League. But yeah, I think he's got so much time on his hands at the minute, Elliott, and I can really see him playing himself into the first team for the coming half of the season.
Yeah, would you stick with Elliott, or would you twist with somebody else for that one?
I'm not too sure off the top of my head who it would change to, but I think my young player of the season, it's not really breakout, in who we're going to be talking about later, was probably up there.
Yeah, well, I went for Botman. So this was based on a couple of games, and he's exceeded even what I thought he would be. So for me, I think he's definitely one of the breakout stars. It's very very easy to not be a breakout star as a defender, and it's always the strikers and the goal scorers and stuff like that that get the acclaim. But really, out of man for man, I think he's absolutely fantastic. I can't sing his praises highly enough. So I'm definitely going to stick
so
with Botman.
well.
Yeah, he's just absolutely fitted in like a glove. That normally when you join from a foreign league, sometimes even if you're a great player, it takes some time to adjust. He's just fitted straight in, and he's looked fantastic against anyone he's come up against. Obviously, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, whatever. He's not had a bad game yet that I can recall. So next up, we've got Young Player of the Season. So I went for Anthony Gordon. Now, he's come off the boil, in my opinion. I said at the time it was a very overinflated amount of £60 million. I thought at that time he wasn't £60 million, but knowing Everton's financial difficulties, I knew he was going to get a lot of game time, and that's really what you need as a young'un. He's done okay. That's probably how I would sum it up. Not really massive like everyone expected. I think if he'd gone to Chelsea, he probably wouldn't have gotten any game time. I don't know how his performances would have been from there. You went for Saka.
Yeah, I mean, what a season Saka's had so far, and he even showed glimpses of that in the World Cup as well. Second most assists in the Premier League behind Kevin De Bruyne on 6, De Bruyne on 9. And yeah, Arsenal just looks so good at the minute when you watch them. So entertaining, fluid. Everyone seems to know what they're doing. The manager is getting the best from them at the minute. So yeah, I think Saka's been really, really good so far amongst many other Arsenal players.
Yeah, and he's slotted into the England squad. He seems like a starter nowadays, which for his age is absolutely ridiculous. He's taking pens, which is unusual. I always find it unusual when the striker doesn't want to take a penalty and get his numbers up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that could just be down to confidence. And 21 years of age, the football he's playing at the minute, I don't know, you would be as confident as he is.
Yeah, fantastic. And really, I think he's head and shoulders the young player of the season. I couldn't really think of anyone else that you'd be able to give it to compared to him.
Yeah, at the minute you can't. Yeah.
The next one is the worst signing. Now, we both said exactly the same thing, and it wasn't necessarily for the player himself. It was merely for the valuation. So this was Morgan Gibbs-White, £40 million. Would you stick with that? How would you analyse what choice?
Yeah, I mean, I would stick with that for £40 million. You'd expect more than 2 assists and 2 goals this season in how many number of games they've played. I mean, it's sort of like Lingard. They haven't really looked like they've fit into the team as well as they should have. But then I suppose that could just be down to time and the squad gather momentum, but which we could see much more from him in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we went out as part of what we do where we interview Newcastle and away fans before every single home game. We actually spoke to Nottingham Forest fans before they played up here, and we said, this was very early at the start of the season, who's the best player? Who should people be most frightened of? And it was Johnson, who's a winger/striker. Wasn't Gibbs-White. You think if you paid £40 million, or if you had an England international at the time with Lingard, they would be the easy ones. But no, it was Ben Johnson. So they're all quite confident there that they do have the structure, they have the players and stuff like that. So again, at the start of the season, they were the interesting one to watch. They're definitely going to be the interesting one. And I think the break probably suits them very well, just to get the players to gel together, relax a little bit, and then go into the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, and as I said, Forest have that sort of home crowd feeling like Newcastle and the big 6 teams. I mean, the wins against Liverpool and Forest in the cup really showed what the fans can bring to the side. So yeah, I think I'll be very interested to see how they do in the second half of the season. Yeah,
would you change worst signing? But for me, I think I would kind of look back at it, and I'd say Calvin Phillips. I thought at the time it was just an excess player, someone who they didn't even need. It's just they've got so much money, they can do what they want. But considering he hasn't played, and when he does play, I still can't see how he gets into that. Maybe just as a rotation player. But would you stick with Morgan Gibbs, or would you change
I don't
it?
think Gibbs-White has necessarily been a bad player. He hasn't really been like as poor as maybe we've made it out to be this season. But I mean, just for the price tag that they paid for him at the time. But yeah, I agree with you with Calvin Phillips. I don't know how he got anywhere near the England squad. I mean, he played a matter of minutes when he got picked to go to Qatar. So yeah, I don't know, but again, it's another player. It's just whether it's based on him getting into that City team or him actually as a player. I don't know how it'll go with Calvin Phillips, to be honest. Yeah, he just can't get anywhere near the team, really.
Well, I think it's more Southgate picking his regulars. He's
Picking
always
his favourites.
that. Yeah, he kind of made a rod for his back early in his England career when he said, "Oh, I'm going to pick people on form and this, that, and the other," and it's kind of just disintegrated with every single team. Always Luke Shaw, always Maguire. Even though Maguire's played fantastic, it's obviously not based on form for club football. Next one then. So player of the season. Now, I might as well have just given a glut of these to Haaland at the start of the season. No one kind of the expectation. I give it to Haaland. I've obviously got to keep that. You give it to De Bruyne, who's obviously, how can you not give it to De Bruyne? He's a world-class player. Would you stick with De Bruyne? Would you change it or?
Yeah, I mean, the only really other person that you're going to go for is Haaland, so it just depends. Are you going for the goals or the assists? I mean, that's what they both bring to Man City at the minute, and I can see them staying at the top of those individual stats coming the end of the season.
Yeah. Again, it'll be interesting. We'll read the comments. If you're watching this, let us know below exactly what your answers are. Who's the player of the season and the rest of it. The next one is possibly one of the most interesting ones, is the biggest bargain. So when we were looking at biggest bargain, it's not a case of you're looking at the top transfers. It's a case of who's being shrewd and stuff like that. So I'd went for Eriksen, who I think has played very well for Man U. I'm kind of very happy with that choice. He's slotted in very well. He's kept his place considering they signed Cambiasso and a few others. He's done amazing. He's nailed on for Man U midfield, which is obviously very difficult midfield. There's a lot of choice. And then there's people like Fred and stuff like that who are always going to get game time for them. How would you rate Eriksen this first half of the season?
Yeah, I think he's played really well under Ten Hag. I think United have done well at the start of the season. I don't really think any fans would say anything negative about Eriksen and that United team at the minute.
Yeah, I think it was a surprise when he moved. It was only really Man U and Brentford who were interested.
Yeah, who were in
very
form.
Surprising. And I think now looking back at it, there'll be some clubs maybe kicking themselves thinking, why didn't we go for him? He was on a free.
Yeah. Had quite a decent World Cup as well, although Denmark didn't do so well. Eriksen was quite good. Yeah.
And then, do you remember who you went for?
Perisic, I went for, was it? Yeah. I mean, yeah, Perisic, he's, as I said, what a great World Cup he just came off the back from. Conte uses him along that left-hand side as almost a wing-back, is what he's known for in football. And yeah, he's racked up a good couple of assists and good performances this season. I mean, at the age of 33 and a free transfer, you can't really complain.
I think that the only complaint is on Football Manager. He's a bit of a rotation. He bangs in with the assists whenever he plays, but he's played very sparingly. So possibly to do with his age, but he gets forward a lot.
He does, and I think Conte even played him. He's been played as a striker this season in some roles, so he's very, very versatile in his role. But yeah, I think Perisic has been a great addition for Spurs.
Yeah. Next one is biggest flop. Now, how would you rate your choice of Calvin Phillips? Obviously, he's been injured, so you can't really argue again.
Yeah, there's nothing I can really say at the minute. He hasn't really got much game time apart from a cup game against Chelsea, I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he got a few minutes at the World Cup. But I mean, we'll see what comes from him in the second half of the season. Again, I just can't see him getting into that City first team.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to eat my words with this one because for biggest flop, I went for Martinez at Man U. I was kind of made a knee-jerk reaction based on the first few games. He had a dreadful first few games.
Yeah.
And now he looks like a star. He's pulling in fantastic performances. There's obviously always going to be some concern over his height because obviously it's set players and stuff like that. But his performances on game throughout the game, fantastic. He's really turned things around in terms of me. I think he's a good signing, so I'll definitely eat my words with the biggest flop.
Just won the World Cup as well. I'm sure he'll be filled with confidence coming into the next half of the season.
Exactly. Yeah, got to join Man U after winning the World Cup. Yeah. Next, winning the league. So this is obviously looking at the whole league stage by stage. Yeah. So there's obviously going to be some massive upsets and stuff like that because some people have just overachieved massively. It's still very early on in the season. A lot can change. A lot can change in the January transfer market. For winners of the league, we both said Man City. Now, as of recording, They're second, and there's a 5-point difference. Arsenal, who neither one of us, and I don't even think honest Arsenal fans would have had us winning the Premier League, are in line to do that. Do you think, firstly, City, do you think they will catch up, and do you think what prediction will be right, or can you see Arsenal or someone else winning this?
I mean, I think City will catch up, first of all. I think they're just going to go on a massive run with Haaland in the second half of the season. But then, as for Arsenal, again, they're playing such good football, but yeah, it'll be really interesting. I mean, they play each other in the middle of February, so I really think it might come down to that. But I still think Arsenal will continue their good forms they did in the first half of the season.
I mean, they've got everything. The defense looks absolutely watertight. The midfield looks great. They're getting forward. Every time they get the ball, they're looking forward. They're trying to attack. It's great football to watch. 5 points is a lot at halfway through the season, but Man City are just phenomenal. The Foden, De Bruyne, Haaland, you literally go through every single one of their players. I don't think 5 points is going to be enough. I think the Jesus injury, if Arsenal are going to try to win, I think they need to replace them. Nketiah, I think he's okay, but if you're looking to win the league, I don't think that's good enough to get you the goals that's going to be needed. So
I'm just looking at their fixtures coming up at sort of January, February. They've got Spurs away, United at home, away to Everton, and then they have that City game coming up. So it'll be we'll find out very quickly if Arsenal continue their good form. So it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, we both said City, so we both still said City at the start of the season, and still now even 5 points.
Yeah.
Second was runners up. Now at the start of the season, you will get a lot of people who think, "Oh no, I predicted this, that, and the other." Almost everyone thought it was a 2-horse race between Liverpool and Man City. We both went for Liverpool. Where are you expecting Liverpool to finish at the end of the season? For me, I don't think they're going to get top 4. I think 5. I think there's had too bad a start of the season. I think they will invest in January potentially, but like you said, new owners, are they going to spend a load of money before they sell that? Do you do your house before you sell it? What do you think?
I think we'll still get top 4. I think the break has probably been beneficial to us the most out of most teams in the league. Still some pretty hard games coming up. I mean, our first game back is this Thursday, City in the Cup. We'll see how that goes. That'll be interesting to see where both teams are at. But yeah, I just think I know the injuries to Diaz and Jota aren't great, but then it's like although most teams have got a whole pre-season behind them now, I think Nunez after the World Cup will be looking to fire again, a fresh Salah. I don't see any reason why we couldn't finish in the top 4. But it just depends how the other teams. I mean, if Newcastle, United, Spurs keep up their good form, then it'll be pretty hard.
Yeah. Well, touching on the top 4 then, if we go on to where we thought top 4, so obviously we've already touched on first and second. Now, we both got the same answer as well. So we both said third, Spurs and fourth, Arsenal.
Yeah.
How do you see number 2, 3, and 4 going position-wise?
I think Arsenal are top 4. I think there's no question that's where they're going to finish this season. Newcastle's such a hard one to predict. I mean, I had them in 7th, I think, in our prediction at the start.
You did, yeah.
I did, yeah. So, I mean, I knew they were going to be up there, but I just didn't realise how high they could potentially go. I mean, it could really go anywhere with Newcastle. They could keep on being as good as they've been and cement themselves, as a top 4 team. Yeah.
So you think Newcastle 3rd or 4th, or how you put your top 4?
How am I putting my top 4? Sorry. I'll go City first. I'll go Arsenal second. I'll go. Oh, it's hard. I'll go Spurs 3rd, and I'll go Liverpool 4th, with Newcastle just missing out Europa League.
Okay, with me, I kind of agree with the top 2. Obviously, I think City will get it. I think Arsenal will get pipped early on. I don't think it'll be one of these things that run down to the last game and will they catch them. 3rd, I think Spurs. I just think Harry Kane's got a point to prove. I think he'll obviously have a couple of matches off because of the World Cup. But they've now got an option. For me, the fear with Tottenham was if they lose Harry Kane, they just do not seem the same team. They got very lucky because I remember a few seasons ago, he had a bad injury and then COVID happened. It was literally the best time for them to have that because they felt no impact, but they are very reliant, as are England, on Harry Kane. Now, Richarlison seems like he can play up top. So they've obviously got Son who can play up top, but now Richarlison as well. So I think really they've got the depth now to kind of mount a push. Maybe not for the top of the first or second, but I can see them finishing third. Fourth, I'm going to go Newcastle, but I'm going to caveat it slightly because I think it depends on what they do in January. So at the moment, they have spent a lot of money. They haven't really sold a lot of players in terms of getting much in terms of revenue in to meet.
Yeah, do you think they'll spend big?
Yeah, but I do think because we're in third, the owners might loosen the purse strings and just think, right, we were going to spend X. Now we're going to spend Y because we do feel we're either going to get Europe or Champions League. So we'll get that money in, which means we're able to spend more. I think really, Alex Ferguson used to say it a few years ago, the best time to invest is when you're on top. I know we're not on top, but third in the league, now's the time to maybe, you can attract them people who we've never been able to attract for a long time because now we do have the almost promise of Champions League, Europe, we're playing attacking football. So I think if they do go out and spend a couple of, however much it is, on two really good players, maybe three, I can see definitely top four. If we kind of don't gamble and we pick up an injury to Callum Wilson, Isaacs, I don't know what's going on with him. We got told a few months ago it was just a little niggle, and then it's just continued and continued. He still doesn't seem like he's going to be back. St. Maximin's just picked up a knock. We've really overachieved. I think a lot is thankful for a lot of players, but Almiron is just, I don't know what's happening, boy. I mean, I don't know if it's whatever Jack Grealish said, something like that, but he's just, I've never seen half of what he's capable of in terms of this.
He's been so good.
Yeah. So that's top four then. So if we go on to the other predictions that we had, so the noticeable ones, so if I go down my sort of league first, so Man City, Liverpool have obviously dropped a heck of a way from either one of us kind of expected.
Yeah.
Fifth, I had Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are eighth. Now, in terms of Chelsea, you also had them in fifth. The eighth. How do you see Chelsea's second half of the season going? They've had a break. It probably suits them, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to predict. They had a really, really awful end of the season, losing to Arsenal and Newcastle, both 1-0. I just think Potter needs to find his team and his players, and I think he needs to stop changing it so frequently. I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. But yeah, I think that pretty much is. I think can't see Chelsea finishing in the top four this season. I think the best they could probably do is Europa League, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think for me personally with Chelsea, Aubameyang's just not hit the ground running at all. I've watched some of the European matches. He just doesn't seem the player that he used to be anymore. And I think when you're relying a bit too much on that and you're going with history, it's going to cost you. And I think really the best thing for them to do is to cut their losses and get another striker in who's really capable of getting the goal. Havertz is okay in terms of he does have a few goals in him, but really if you're pushing for top four, you need a top striker. And really, I don't think Aubameyang's that person. I don't think Havertz is that person. I think really they need someone else who can contribute with goals. Sixth, we both had Man U. I still think they're going to finish there or thereabouts. I don't think they're going to get top four, but it wouldn't be a massive surprise. They just sold Ronaldo. There's going to have a lot of money in the coffers, you'd imagine, because of the wages. What do you think for Man U? Yeah,
again, it could go either way with United. I can definitely see them giving top four a good push this season. Again, I just think it depends on the clubs around them. Like if Liverpool find their form again, if Spurs keep on going, then I can't see any room for them in the top four, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, they've got some really good players. Garnacho's shown how good he can be in the last game when they beat Fulham. And I maybe think Ronaldo leaving will sort of help the squad in a way to come together as one and not have to worry about the media stuff with surrounding Ronaldo. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, just looking at some of the other stuff that we had, we generally had the top 6, 7, the same sort of area. The ones where we did kind of get it really wrong, just looking at this, is you had West Ham 8th.
Yep.
I had them 9th. They're 16th in the league. Now, when I was looking at the league table just earlier for this video, I didn't realise it's obviously been a while since we've had Premier League football.
I know.
forgot how bad West Ham were doing. I was gobsmacked.
I know, yeah, so was I. I mean, the only real positive you can take from their season is the fact they've won every game in the Conference League and they're sitting top of that group. But again, that comes from getting knocked out of the Europa League last season. Yeah, West Ham have been a shock in the Premier League. I'm not sure what's going wrong there. And with Declan Rice possibly out the door, could just get even worse for them.
Yeah, 16th. I mean, it's one of these cases where we'll probably both look at them and say, are they too good to go down? That's been said a lot in Premier League history where clubs are too good to go down. Could you see them getting sucked into it the second half?
No, I don't think they'll be near relegation.
Yeah, there's definitely some worse. Just looking at the bottom of the league, there's definitely some worse teams, but something's got to click for them, and maybe the break and clearing their heads is exactly what's needed. Because how you can go from finishing where they did last season to where they are now, it always intrigues us how that's possible. Right, so some of the other noticeable differences where we got it either really wrong or really right was Wolves. So I had Wolves in 12th.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you have them? 11th. Now,
11th.
Bottom of the league. Bottom of the league. Out of all the teams that there are in the Premier League, the teams that have gone up, I would never have thought Wolves. I thought maybe they would be hovering around 15th or something at worst. How are you worried for Wolves? Firstly, do you think they will go down? And how would you surprise Wolves this season?
I mean, I have one of my good friends is a Wolves fan, and he doesn't. I don't think, in the grand scheme of things, that they'll be relegated, but they have had such a bad start. I think the new manager Lopetegui, I think is how you pronounce it, will come in and get them playing some proper football. But yeah, they've had some really, really bad defeats. I mean, got stuffed 4-0 by Leicester at home. Defeats to Brighton, just the sorts of games that you have to be winning if you want to stay in the Premier League. It just hasn't gone well for them at the start of the season.
They just can't score. They're terrible in front of
But I think they've got a chance of pulling it back. So I do.
Yeah. I don't have them pinned to go down, which is unusual because normally the safe bet is you just say who's 20th or go down. Yeah. I think really all they need is a good striker. I think Jimenez, he hasn't really looked the same. Glimpses of kind of since he's had the head injury. They spent a load of money on that Fabio striker, thinking he was going to be the boy. Or I think really all they need is a striker. I was absolutely gobsmacked that they give away their captain, Cody. I couldn't believe that decision. Why on earth that happened? But he's obviously done wonderful at Everton. The last few games, Everton's defence has been all right, quite solid. And I think that's probably going to be the thing that maybe if they stay up, will do it. But shocking decision by Wolves. And I think really all they need is a striker, someone who can score. And I think they'll dig themselves out. They've still got some really good players.
Yeah, and I think the manager will be a key into getting them back to playing good football. I mean, he's been at Porto, Real Madrid, Sevilla, some of the best clubs in the world. So, yeah, I think Wolves will be just fine.
Yeah, another so noticeable one that we had really wrong was Fulham. So I'd said 17th they would finish, and you had 16th. They're 9th in the league. Massive amount to Mitrovic, but would you credit just Mitrovic? Is it the Mitrovic show, or is it a few of them?
I mean, from the first game of the season where we ended up drawing 2-2 with them, you could start to see that they were building something there at Craven Cottage. I mean, Bernd Leno has been brilliant for them since signing for Arsenal, and even players you might have forgotten about, like Willian, have put in really good performances for them. Andreas Pereira, who came from Man United, what a season he's having. Yeah. Great one for the fantasy Premier League team. And your Portuguese man Paulinho in midfield has been excellent for them. So yeah, I think Fulham are massively overachieving at the minute, and they've got quite unlucky in games, losing narrowly to United in the 90th minute in their last game losing to City just by the one goal. But yeah, I think Fulham have done so well so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down the streets of Newcastle, he's a very Marmite player. Some people absolutely wish we could have kept him, knew he was going to come good. At the time, he was a red card liability. He was, doing tackles left, right, and centre, but you could always tell he was a good in front of goal. He was always capable of getting goals, whether or not in the Premier League or whatever. That's kind of been the thing that's dogged him his career. Can he do it in the Premier League? Absolute wonder season in the Championship. He carried that on. Do you think he'll move on to bigger and better things? Do you see any big clubs coming in for him? When we look at the top goal scorers, really. He's up there in the charts.
Yeah, he's fourth on nine goals. I'm just seeing right now. So yeah, he's right up there. I mean, he's definitely proved that he can score goals and he can score a lot of goals in the Premier League. I don't know if it'll just come down to his attitude. Like you said, he was a walking red card at times. I don't know if any bigger clubs will pick him up. I think he'll stay at Fulham for the remainder of the season and see what he can do there.
Well, speaking of another striker that could really be linked with a top club is Ivan Toney. Now, he's another one who's really got Brentford overachieving. Brentford, I had them in 19th. You had them in 13th. You thought they'd do quite well. They're 10th. So is that another case of it's quite down to Ivan Toney, or is it a case of them as a whole?
I think more Ivan Toney in this scenario. I mean, what a player he's been. I don't know why he wasn't near Gareth Southgate's squad. But then I suppose you look at other players like Ben Mee's been so good for them since signing for Burnley. Jensen in midfield, another unbelievable Danish Premier League player. But yeah, I think 10 goals in the Premier League, it's exactly what you want from your striker. And I think this may be Toney's last season at Brentford, depending on the price tag that they put on him. But yeah, what a player he is. Yeah,
and you think if you can get 10 goals for Brentford, what could you do if you were called up for Man U or one of the top 6 or top 8 clubs?
Completely agree.
Yeah. Another one that we had, I'd actually managed to nail Leicester down to 13. That was the only one that I actually got absolutely spot on. Looking at the ones you had, you got 3 absolutely perfect. So you got nailed on that Everton would be 17th. They're 17th right now.
Yep.
Nottingham Forest 18th and Southampton 19th. So you got pretty much the relegation E-zone pretty much nailed on. The only one that you got really wrong, and both of us got it quite wrong, was Bournemouth. We both had them finishing absolutely rock bottom.
Yeah.
And they're flying in 14th.
I know. I mean, Bournemouth again. I think they're slightly overachieving. But it's a really, really small gap at the top. I mean, no, sorry, at the bottom. I mean, there's only 6 points between Wolves in 20th and Bournemouth in 14th.
Yeah, and you've got Leeds down there that have got a game in hand as well. So
yeah,
that could really get them out of it, because 3 points down there shoots you massively.
I mean, this season, even with Fulham up in 9th, I think it's just so hard to predict what's going to happen. Anyone can beat anyone, especially this season.
Yeah, well, hard to predict. That brings us on to the next thing, which is our bottom 3 to go down. We have to predict it.
Yeah. So who did you have?
So who I had at the time at the start of the season, I had in 18th Everton. They're obviously only one difference, and pretty much got that one okay. Then I had Brentford, who have done fantastic, like we said, due to Ivan Toney and the way that they play it. And then Bournemouth, I had 20th. You had Nottingham Forest 18th, which was spot on. 19th Southampton, perfect again. And then Bournemouth, you had rock bottom, and they finished 14th. If you had to pick again, going into the second half of the season, who would you have 18th, 19th, and 20th? If you want to start top to bottom, so 18th, 19th, and then 20th.
Yep. I don't know what it is, but there's just something with Bournemouth that I still think they might struggle. So I mean, if I had to give you a prediction now, I would go Bournemouth 17th, Forest Bournemouth 18th, Forest 19th, and Southampton 20th. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, no matter how much of an expert we are, or if you actually got the proper experts in, it's so hard to pick this. It literally could go anywhere for a lot of teams. Literally all you need is a bad couple of run games, and that's it. What I've went for is I've also went bottom Southampton. I think they kind of flirt with relegation season in, season out. They've done it for years. I don't know how they're getting away with it. And,
I know. I'm not sure about Nathan Jones either. I mean, he did so well with Luton Town. I mean, almost got them into the Premier League, but I don't know if he has the experience to be managing in the Premier League. But we'll see.
I mean, well, Southampton are just someone I never seem to root for, just because I don't like the business model where they always seem, from years ago, had some amazing young players coming in, and they just sold them, didn't replace them, money in the bank pocket, very Mike Ashley-esque. And you can only keep that up surely for so long. You can't take all the money, sell your promising players, not replace them, and expect to stay up. They've done it too many seasons, and I think this will be the season. I thought it would be last season. I thought it would be the season before that.
Yeah.
But I do think out of all of the bottom six at the minute, Southampton are pretty nailed on, I would say.
I think so.
Yeah. Then 19th, I went for Everton. I just can't see them spending a lot in January. Obviously, they've got the new stadium to pay for. I thought the only thing that would really get them out is Dominic Calvert-Lewis. I thought he would really do well, get a lot of goals. He's been injured a lot. I thought Gordon would have a breakout season and do really well. I just don't think it's clicking for them. They sold Richarlison, who now, again, kind of like what I've just said with Southampton, how can you sell your best players and expect the same results? You sell your best players, you're going to dip down the division. So 19th I went for with Everton, but it wouldn't surprise me if they stayed up. Then 18, this was the very tricky one. And again, very similar to Southampton, where I thought they would go down last season, but they survived last game of the season, was Leeds. Okay. Again, wouldn't surprise me if it was Nottingham Forest, if it was, Bournemouth, if it was whatever.
It's so open at the minute.
It's so open. Really, I think it's only Southampton who will definitely go down, and then it could be a revolving door between 4 or 5. Like you say, I could see Bournemouth getting sucked into it as well. But I think with them, a lot of it is going to be what they do in January. With Nottingham Forest, have they spent all of the money that they're able to? Are they not going to be able to spend in January? And are some of the other teams around there going to spend money and get further up? It's going to be an exciting January transfer.
And maybe we could even come back after the January transfer window and have another go at see what teams have done well and who haven't. But yeah, you were saying about Leeds. I mean, some of the results Leeds have had this season, they went from getting beat 3-2 by Fulham to beating Liverpool at Anfield 2-1. So they've got a result in them, but it's just whether the consistency is probably the main question at the minute. But yeah, such an interesting team, Leeds under Jesse March.
Yeah, I mean, Bamford, when people at the start of the season, they got rid of Rafinha, arguably their best player. Between him and Bamford at the time, Bamford's done nothing this season. He's minutes, he's come on for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, not really done anything.
Hasn't scored yet.
Hasn't done anything, no. Rodrigo, I think, is the reason why they've excelled. I really didn't know much about him at the start of the season.
9 goals.
He's just gone. Yeah, and fantastic. I think he's filled the gap. I don't know if maybe he was planned to be played as high up the field as he was due to the Bamford injury, but he's took it, he's ran with it, and he's 5th or 6th, something like that, in the top goal scorer charts. Fantastic.
And even some of the new additions that they've just got Somerville. How good's he been? Sinestra, both young wingers. So yeah, I think it's more exciting for Leeds at the minute to see some of these players coming through, to see what they'll do.
Yeah, I mean, another couple that we could touch on as well is Aston Villa. Aston Villa are 12th. They've been very hit and miss. They've had a lot of players who have really not done the business. Steven Gerrard at one time looked like he could be sacked. How would you rate them going into the second half of the season? Because really they've got so much quality, and player for player, fantastic, but they're just not clicking.
I mean, I watched the first video earlier on this morning, and you were saying you can see Gerrard being one of the first managers to get sacked in the Premier League, and how right were you there? But yeah, again, Villa, it seems to just be this question of consistency with them. I think Unai Emery has the potential to come in and get them battling for Europe again, because they definitely have the squad to do so. But again, yeah, it can be hit or miss at times. You just don't know what you're going to expect from them.
Who would you say would be the next manager to go? Obviously, they've all survived this whole World Cup stage. Who would you put your money on if you had to?
Frank Lampard, potentially, at Everton. Moyes at West Ham, if they don't pick up form, I can see. Maybe Brendan Rodgers at Leicester would probably be my 3 picks.
Yeah, I wouldn't really disagree with you. I think with the only thing is with Everton, they've obviously sold Richarlison. And for me, I know owners don't necessarily think of it, but you've got to think holistically. And have we took money out of the team? And are we expecting higher things? With Everton, that's a case of what they've done. They were flirting with relegation last season. Then they sold Richarlison.
Yeah.
For me, that's a recipe for disaster. So it's a case of be realistic with in terms of what you've got. I do actually quite like Frank Lampard. Whether or not he's going to be a great Premier League manager or whatever, I just quite like him. I think he conducts himself quite well in interviews and stuff. In terms of the other ones, Leicester, I think he's got a lot of credit in the bank. Brendan Rodgers. Definitely. I personally rate him. I think he's a great manager. I did think he looked like a dead man walking though at one part of the season, and he just seemed defeatist. Nothing was going for him, and I think sometimes when nothing goes for you, no, it doesn't matter how good of a manager you are, the owners will just press the panic button. I think he's got himself out of it now. I really can't see them getting sucked into it unless they get rid of Maddison, who seems to be like he could be Newcastle's #1 transfer target if the summer was anything to go by. One of the people who really could get sacked, even though he hasn't been in the job very long, is the Bournemouth manager. It could be a case of new owners want their own man in, and I think maybe if they do lose a couple of games, that could be the excuse. It's just historically always been the way. Whenever get new owners and they spend that much in, they don't want whoever's been in. They want their own vision and stuff like that. So that could be a tightrope waiting to happen. January transfer window, I know they've just come in. You probably wouldn't get rid of the manager straight away, but you're going to have to trust someone who you haven't chosen to get in with your money that's going to survive. I don't know. Interesting second half of the season, but
yeah, I'm really looking forward to the second half of the season. Again, anything could happen, and I hope Liverpool get back to winning ways.
Yeah, top 4 potential. We'll see. I mean, you've got a few injuries, haven't you? Still.
Yeah, Diaz, Jota, not looking well, but I think we'll add a few players in January.
Yeah, what do you think of Trent? Because just looking, his name's kind of been smeared in mud and all sorts, thinking he's terrible. He's a great right back. I don't know what all of the stuff.
I think the trophies speak for itself. He's won, I think, every club trophy you could think of. What age would he be now? 20, 22, 23?
Still young, yeah.
I mean, he's definitely still our starting right back. I mean, it is a hard one with when you're talking about England, because the likes of Kyle Walker and Reece James are there in competition with him. But yeah, I think Trent's a brilliant player, and I think he'll continue to be that for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of, if we're talking about England, in terms of the right back situation, going into the next tournament, you'd imagine Kieran Trippier might be done. You'd imagine Kyle Walker is going to be done. It does open that up between him and possibly Reece James.
Which is, it's a great choice to have as an England manager between Reece. I think they both offer something different. I mean, people will just go to the argument that James can defend better than Trent, but I think Trent is good defensively. I mean, there's a reason why he's starting for us week in, week out, and it's just different because we play our system through him almost. He's almost like a midfielder at times for Liverpool.
Yeah, in terms of England's performance, they got knocked out by France. What did you kind of think of England?
I thought if they beat France that they would have went on to win the World Cup. They played the better football, but France just had that experience and took the most of their chances. And Giroud, what a player he is in the World Cup. He just showed what he can do, and his finishing is just unbelievable. But
his age as well, it's ridiculous how he leads the line for France.
But with England, I just think the amount of talent they have coming through at the minute with Saka, Foden, I think the next one could maybe be the one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think for me, before a ball was kicked, if you said who was going to win the World Cup, I had it as France. And seeing the bracket get closer and closer, who was going to play each other, I was dreading France. I thought anyone but France. For me, they're the best team in the world. They went into this World Cup with a ton of really bad injuries. They had Pogba out, they had the left back out, Benzema, and they're still absolutely fantastic. I think everything worked well for England. We got a good early draw in terms of the group stages. Everyone we played and were on target to play, even Argentina. And obviously it's a bit odd to say because they went on to win it, but in terms of who we could have potentially played, Croatia, Argentina. I think it was only France that really we had to get around and
It was,
really fancied us. Yeah, the squad, fantastic. So much youth in it in terms of potential and stuff like that. I do think so. And well, obviously, it's split opinion, Southgate. Let us know below if you're Southgate in, Southgate out.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay on Southgate as well.
Yeah, it's been confirmed. For me, he does play too defensive in a lot of games, but the talent he's got, you know, he was never going to walk away from the job. When you've got that much talent, that's a manager's dream. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes into the next tournament with the youth, the experience and stuff like that. But I think England fans now do expect. I think the squad really is top draw and can go against anyone in the world now, whether it's Brazil, Spain,
agreed.
Anyone. Yeah. Right, there we go then. So that fills in the predictions for the midpoint of the season. We'll do another video at the end of the season to see exactly how terrible we were or how great we were in terms of getting our predictions right. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for all video content, and let us know what your answers are below.